Good morning. It is good to see all of you online today. I'm Jocelyn, OUUC Media Specialist. I use they, them, or she, her pronouns. Welcome to all who are joining us on whatever platform you are using. This Zoom service is being recorded and it is streaming live to YouTube. Our worship leaders are in the OUUC sanctuary today, so you will see today's service focused there in a variety of ways. Most of our sharing happens in the Zoom chat box, which is not posted or shared publicly. We use the chat feature for greetings, song lyrics, affirmations and applause, and items shared from the heart. Please save your comments for the copy chat or feel free to contact Reverend Mary at minister@ouuc.org. We will be turning the chat on and off during the service today. We can expect some tech glitches as we continue to do all we can to optimize our connections. If you do experience any technical issues during the service, you can reach out to me or another member of the tech team for assistance when the chat is on. We appreciate your patience as we all remember it's about connection, not perfection. And last, I hope you will find a candle or a chalice, and in a moment we can light them together. Thank you all for your grace and adaptability as we continue to learn together.
And I'm sorry to say I muted Reverend Mary because there was a slight echo from Joe. So somebody's gonna have to go unmute her at the laptop, my bad. That didn't work. You're still muted, Reverend Mary. Sorry. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Just a moment. When When hope is hard to find, and love bring a song of love, when it blows in the wind through time. Thank you for singing.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. The OUUC community comes together to live in the mutual promises and possibilities of our covenant. We envision an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ann Colbury. I use she, her pronouns. I am a member of the Worship Arts team. Leading worship today is our guest minister, Reverend Carol McKinley, and Liz Clement, another member of Worship Arts. Troy Fisher, our music director, is leading the choir. Many thanks to the tech team and OUUC media specialist Joe Saline for providing technical support. We're also grateful for Darlene Sarkala, our administrator, who keeps us informed and connected. Thank you to choir members in the sanctuary today and to the breakout room hosts. We are grateful for the many hands helping to make worship happen this morning. We invite you to stay online after the service for a virtual coffee chat. This is a chance to connect with a small group and check in. Each breakout room will have a host so everyone knows each other and has a chance to share. Reverend Carol will offer reflection questions to jumpstart conversations. We hope you'll stay. I want to draw your attention to the order of service on our website, which includes all of our announcements. Our After Church with Melanie Ransom talk show is after the breakout rooms. Just return to the main Zoom room or log back in about 11:30. Today, Melanie interviews member Barry Zicker, youth leader, former board secretary, and Dungeons and Dragons host. Please mark your calendar for the all-congregational picnic 2 weeks from today on Sunday, August 22nd. We will gather from noon to 3 at OUUC and Bury Park down the street for food, fun, and community. Please bring your own picnic. OUUC will provide drinks and dessert. Don't miss it. Last, the Environmental Action Team has a message for us this morning.
Hello, good morning. My name is Wendy Stephenson. I am with OUUC's Environmental Action Team. We have an environmental challenge going on this year. It's going to go on for 9 months and it's going to end on Earth Day 2022. So last month we had water conservation as our monthly challenge. This month in August, we have keeping it cool as our environmental challenge. So for August, we want you to learn and use tricks to keep your home cool and reduce your carbon footprint and also reduce your energy bill. So in order to participate in the challenge, it's pretty simple. You find the link to our tracking sheet and to the instructions, either in a weekly update or on the web. So go ahead and follow those links. You will fill out the tracking sheet and you'll send it in at the end of the month. You'll send it to ouuc.eat.environmentchallenge@gmail.com. We'd like you to send it about 2 weeks after the month or sooner, and then we will do a random drawing the week after for one random winner, and we will also have a top points winner. So there'll be 2 prizes each month, small prizes, but fun prizes. So that's all I have for now. Help reduce your carbon footprint and have some fun. And remember to keep it Cool.
There are many opportunities to stay connected to our community because social distancing does not mean social isolation. Check the website regularly and please contact a staff member if you have questions or need help. Now, let us open our hearts and minds as we prepare to worship. Welcome, everyone. It is good to be together.
This morning and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. Please join me as we light our chalices together with these words by Alice Walker. Love, if it is love, never goes away. It is embedded in us, like seams of gold in the earth, waiting for light, inviting us to widen the circle. Our opening words this morning are offered by Rosemary Bray McNatt. The truth is this: if there is no justice, there will be no peace. If we cannot bring justice into the small circles of our lives, we cannot hope to bring justice to the world. And if we do not bring justice to the world, none of us is safe and none of us will survive. Nothing we can do is more important than making justice here, where we are. Hard as diversity is, it is our most important task. Come, let us worship together.
Let's sing together our opening hymn out of the Till Hymn Book, hymn number 1051, We Are.
story today comes from Ethiopia in northeastern Africa. Long ago, fire, water, truth, and falsehood lived in the same house. Although all were polite towards each other, they kept their distance. Truth and falsehood sat on opposite sides of the room. Fire always leapt out of water's way. One day, they went hunting together. They spotted a large number of cattle and began driving them toward the village. As they traveled across the grasslands, Truth said, "Let us share these cattle equally. This is the fair way to divide our captives." No one disagreed with Truth, except Falsehood, who wanted more than an equal share. Falsehood stayed quiet for the moment, but as they neared the village, Falsehood whispered to Water, "You are more powerful than fire. Destroy fire, and then there will be more cattle for each of us." Water listened and flowed over fire, bubbling and steaming until fire was completely gone. Water meandered cheerfully along, thinking about having more cattle. Falsehood, meanwhile, sidled up to Truth and whispered, "Water has killed fire. Look, see for yourself. Let us leave Water, who has cruelly destroyed our warm-hearted friend. We must take the cattle high up in the mountains to graze." As Truth and Falsehood progressed up the mountain, Water tried to follow, but the mountain was too steep. Water could not flow upwards. Water splashed down upon itself, swirling around rocks as it tumbled down the slope. Look, see for yourself. Water is still tumbling down the mountainsides to this day. When Truth and Falsehood finally arrived at the top, Falsehood turned to Truth and said, "I am more powerful than you. You are my servant. I am your master. All the cattle belong to me." Hearing this, Truth rose up and spoke out, "I will not be your servant." They battled and battled. Finally, they brought the argument to Wind to decide who was master. Wind did not know. Wind blew all around the world, asking whether truth or falsehood was more powerful. Some said, a single word from falsehood can destroy truth. Others insisted, like a small candle in a dark room, truth can change every situation. Wind finally returned to the mountain, saying, "I have seen that falsehood is very powerful, but it can only rule where truth stops struggling to be heard. Look, see for yourself. That continues to this day." This is the end of our story.
We came together in community this morning, bringing all that is in our lives. In this space, we draw on the strength of our community to listen deeply and hold all that we bring here with us. In this space, we share from our hearts what brings us joy, what brings us sorrow, and what brings us worry, what brings us delight, what makes us afraid, and what makes us dance. This morning, let us open our hearts to the complexity of our life, our own and that of others. If you would like to send in something to share, please look for the link in the online worship page on the OUUC website, and we'll bring it into the service next week. You will hear a drum beat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat, and together we create the heartbeat of our community. Right now, I invite you to take a breath as we open our hearts to receive the complexity of all that is in our lives and community today. We offer condolences to Beth Johnson and Lee Doyle as they mourn the loss of their longtime friend Sheila, who died suddenly on Thursday. Lee and Beth, may your fond memories sustain you as you say goodbye and grieve your loss, knowing that Sheila has gone to join her beloved Doug in a world beyond this one. Martha Guilfoyle and Des McGahan asked for prayers for the safety of Sherry Keller, who has been missing since Thursday when she was hiking with friends in Olympic National Park. Sherry, may you find your way safely home. I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat box on your screen. This is a time to share all that you wish, joys and sorrows, and whatever else is shared from your heart. And as we take in what is posted, let the heartbeat of our community reach out in love and care to all those who share. I place a stone in the water for all that has been shared from the heart, a stone holding the complexity of our lives held in the water of community. And we will place one more stone in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken. I invite you now into a time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, as we hold close all those who have shared from their hearts, help us to understand that to be human is to be always learning, always growing, always incomplete. Let this knowing enlarge our compassion for ourselves and for others. Help us grow in our ability to forgive and to accept forgiveness, to become more capable of loving ourselves and each other. And in this way, become a more expansive, beloved community. Amen. Let us be together in silence.
Let's sing together hymn number 322. Thanks be for these.
It Our prayers and meditations deepen our gratitude for what we know is sacred in our lives and in this world. Each Sunday, we express our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. The offering today is twofold. It supports the ongoing work of OUUC, which is also supported by your regular pledges. It also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. For the months of July and August, our Share the Plate recipient is the Family Support Center of South Sound. Founded in 1992, the Family Support Center provides families with children and survivors of domestic violence and/or sexual assault with coordinated supportive services. Their mission is working together to strengthen all families. Your contribution is needed to help their ongoing diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Family Support Center envisions a community in which all are valued, nurtured, and have the resources to be strong, healthy, self-sufficient, and hopeful. You can participate in the offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your screen in just a moment. You could also mail a check to OUUC. Our community partners continue to need our financial support. May the offering now be generously given as it is most gratefully received. Thank you. And thank you all for your generous gifts. Today's first reading is Marginal Wisdom by Leslie Takahashi Morris. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest is false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truth in many hues, but we are taught to think in either or, to believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our ears to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in the course, that the margins hold the center.
Our second reading is Nothing is Fixed, adapted from the words of James Baldwin. For nothing is fixed forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. This ends our readings. Our Unitarian Universalist principles ask us as a faith community to affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. These, of course, are the words of our fourth principle, one of the 7 principles or values that inform Unitarian Universalism. The principles serve as an expression of how we hope to be with each other and with the world. So we might ask ourselves, what do those words, to affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, actually mean? And then how do we live them? Well, those words are rooted in the experience of our Unitarian and Universalist religious ancestors. Their free and responsible search for truth and meaning compelled them to risk persecution as they broke away from their cultural and familial traditions when they found they could not, with integrity, profess belief in long-established creeds, doctrines, and practices. Our forebears had come to believe that each person had the right and the power to follow one's own conscience and life experience, to find truth and meaning for their lives, to be open to new learning, new discoveries, new revelations, to believe that one's faith and practices are shaped not only by ancient teachings, but by new understandings that emerge from that free and responsible search. Our spiritual ancestors also recognized that with freedom to imagine a new way to live one's faith comes responsibility. And so they started a new tradition. Today, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning also deeply influences our larger culture, including what we hope our children learn in our public educational systems. Sure, it's important to learn how to diagram and write a sentence. I mean, I love diagramming sentences personally. And it's also important to understand and learn those and apply the principles of mathematics, science, geography, and history. But these are facts that hopefully we acquire, then apply to new learnings as we move through the years in schools and other educational institutions. Yes, knowing facts is important, but the ultimate task of education is not the accumulation of information, but using that information to deepen our understandings and to guide how we interact with our world. How do we, using the facts, the information we have learned, gather, assess, and evaluate the barrage of words, concepts, and experiences coming at us every moment of our lives? How do we weigh the truth and meaning of all that information? How does our education ultimately shape our opinions, our values, our actions in this world? And finally, how do we ensure that our search for truth and meaning remains not only free, but responsible? Well, in recent months, several states have sought to limit that search, especially in the public schools. Florida's governor, like the governors and legislatures in some other states, recently pushed to ban the teaching of critical race theory. And I'll have more about critical race theory in just a moment. Last month, Florida's governor signed a bill that requires the state's colleges and universities to survey students and faculty on their ideological beliefs to ensure that what the governor calls intellectual diversity is represented in classes. But in reality, such acts will not ensure intellectual diversity, but severely restrict it. So what is this flurry of rhetoric and legislation about what is taught in our schools all about? Don't we want our students to freely discuss ideas, explore this country's history, debate ways to interpret that history, and develop values that promote deeper understanding, diversity, and inclusion? Well, the quick answer is that in the wake of this past year's massive protests against racism and white supremacy, a backlash has been building in opposition to efforts to recognize, teach about, and dismantle systemic racism in this country. Some of those who are part of this backlash have focused on an academic discipline opponents see as demeaning American history, undermining a sense of patriotism, even threatening the American way of life. Enter stage left, critical race theory, or CRT. Now, you may have encountered that term a lot recently. It's been popping up frequently in editorials and commentaries about how this country is responding to calls to broaden understanding of the roots and the continuing impact of racism in the United States. And CRT has become a major target of the backlash. Critical race theory has been around for decades. It is a concept that emerged in the 1970s and the 80s that offers academicians and legal scholars an approach to understanding inequality and racism in the United States and why they have persisted even after a whole set of landmark civil rights laws and anti-discrimination laws like the Voting Rights Act, like the Civil Rights Act passed during the Civil Rights Movement. Kimberly Crenshaw, a founding critical race theorist and law professor who teaches at UCLA and Columbia University, explains that CRT recognizes that systemic racism and white supremacy are woven into the fabric of American society. And CRT challenges the beliefs and practices that allow racism and white supremacy to flourish and offers then ways to grapple with our pervasive history. CRT rejects the belief that what is in the past is in the past, and that laws and systems that have grown from that past are detached from it. Indeed, our past lives on today, shaping the legal and social framework of our cultural and political and legal institutions. This framework has allowed, indeed encouraged and nurtured a culture of white supremacy in the United States. Looking at society through the CRT lens helps us understand and acknowledge that racism is an everyday experience for most people of color, that people are privileged or oppressed because of their race in virtually all laws and social institutions, institutions that many of us who are not of a race other than white, another gender identity or nationality, assume are established to benefit everyone in the United States. Our and our nation's search for truth and meaning has revealed that that assumption is not valid, that indeed racism and white supremacy have not only survived, but continued to thrive in the United States. Through the work of legal scholars, social scientists, and historians, we are continuing to learn how legal and social structures at the local and the federal levels have ensured that white supremacy remains firmly entrenched and affects all of our lives. Here's one example. World War II service members returned home in 1945 with the promise that access to funding to purchase a new home through the federal GI Bill would help them reestablish their lives both socially and economically. After all, property ownership helps families feel secure not only by having their housing needs met, but by helping them build financial security to pass along to their families. We now know that those benefits were not available to all GIs. Black soldiers did not benefit from the GI Bill because of policies in financial institutions, in the banks. When challenged, federal courts upheld the rights of lenders to have different standards for loans to Black families. And that was just one institutional practice that limited the lives of people of color. In many cities, local housing regulations restricted where Black families could live. Seattle municipal codes prohibited anyone of color from living north of the Ship Canal. This real estate practice, called redlining, kept people of color restricted to certain areas of the city, either the central area or Beacon Hill, preventing them from living where they might want to purchase a home, with the effect of limiting to what degree those purchasers could use a higher home value in what is considered a more desirable neighborhood to build the family's economic security. Now, during that same post-World War II period, there was a boom in home building all over this country. Once again, families of color often lost out. Ads touting those lovely new developments in the suburbs assured potential white buyers that the deeds for their new homes included covenants that clearly stated that sales could only be made to white people. Now, despite the fact that housing discrimination is illegal now, those covenants still exist in recorded property deeds because they are legal records. Now, in the past few months, some municipal officials, including Mary Hall, Thurston County's auditor, have established a process to have this racist, exclusionary language removed from these property documents. This deeper understanding of the cultural and institutional and economic impact of racism and white supremacy has influenced local officials like Thurston County's auditor to take steps to dismantle racist language preserved in this county's legal records. Now, their efforts many of these officials their efforts are growing from a deeper understanding of our cultural history, understanding racism, not only as acts of prejudice and discrimination by individuals or groups like the Ku Klux Klan, but as a pervasive, well-entrenched system influencing all parts of American society, from public education to financial institutions, a system sustained through laws, policies, and practices. This understanding has widened the conversation about how to achieve a more just society. And governmental bodies are acting to respond. One effort was announced in March by the Thurston County Commissioners, sitting as the county's public health board. The board adopted a resolution declaring racism a public health crisis in Thurston County. The resolution recognizes that the more than 400 years of racism in the United States has manifested as discrimination and oppression directed toward communities of color, that systemic racism is itself a social determinant of health and a root cause of constricted economic and social mobility. The resolution refers to more than 100 studies that have linked racism to worse mental and health outcomes for communities of color, affecting child development, education, employment, public safety, and of course, housing. The resolution commits Thurston County to a course of action to reduce and ultimately eliminate health disparities so that optimal health is possible for everyone. And the resolution lists 8 steps to be taken by the county to address institutionalized racism, promote racial justice, and make the resolution's intentions real. Thurston County Health Board's resolution is similar to actions taken by other Washington County health boards to acknowledge the measurable effects of systemic racism and how it affects the overall health of our communities. And it also signals the intent of governmental bodies to understand and respond to deeply embedded, often unconscious racism that has shaped our thinking, our beliefs, our actions, our political and social systems. Now, we have talked regularly in this congregation about how Unitarian Universalism is also working diligently to expand its understanding of the history and culture of this religious tradition, how systemic racism has lived within it, and how we can better live into our mission as a liberal faith community to transform lives, all lives. We're learning to center the voices here, the stories of those who, despite a number of earlier honest intentions by members of the denomination, have remained on the margins of our faith. Several groups, including OUUC's recently established 8th Principle Group, will be learning and sharing more about the 2020 report, Widening the Circle of Concern, published by the UUA Commission on Institutional Change. This report addresses the perennial problem of race in Unitarian Universalism by looking at our past and our practices, and then offering recommendations for new ways of engaging with our theology and our institutions to more fully live our values, those values named in our 7 principles, and how to live them in today's world. You can look forward in coming months to learning more about the report and how each of us can be part of implementing its recommendations. I believe this is indeed an exciting time for Unitarian Universalism and for our congregations. By widening the circle of concern and widening our conversations, we can experience not only a deeper understanding of our tradition's history, but a more honest understanding of our country's history and of our relationship to that history. It recognizes that history must reflect the sum of all our stories, not just those that offer rosy-hued views of faultless, exceptional heroes in our nation's past, but the stories of those whose voices have been ignored or silenced. The story of the United States is indeed one of wonderful aspirations and achievements. But that story is not complete without the stories of those whose aspirations and achievements were not included in the history taught in our educational institutions. Stories of those brought to these shores as slaves, of those incarcerated in camps during World War II, of Native American women who were not included in the 1919 suffrage amendment to the United States Constitution. Learning the full story of this country, and yes, of our religious tradition, then critiquing that history through a full and responsible search for truth and meaning, hearing stories of those who have been excluded is what it means to fully live into our responsibility as citizens, as people of faith, as human beings. And critical race theory is one more tool that can help us understand how our history has impacted our lives. In 1955, James Baldwin captured the nature of his intense feelings for his nation. He wrote, "I love America more than any other country in the world, and exactly for that reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually." Baldwin was not alone in acknowledging the complex relationship that exists at the intersection of our personal identities, our gender, our religion, ethnicity, race, class, that intersection with our national identity. Last month, this country celebrated Independence Day with parades, barbecues, and fireworks. And indeed, it is wonderful to celebrate the birth of a new form of governance. But it is also a day to acknowledge with humility and honesty that not everyone's independence was declared in that document issued on July 4th, 1776. It is a day that we can renew our own commitment to ensure that those concluding words in the Pledge of Allegiance, with liberty and justice for all, mean all. As people of faith, our religious task is to continue the life-giving work toward transformation of ourselves and our world. And sometimes that means opening ourselves to experience discomfort, to widen our conversations about history, about our past, about bringing new understandings to the ongoing work of transformation. And we can bring those understandings to our work as citizens, making sure that governmental resolutions, like the declaration of racism as a public health crisis, are not filed away and forgotten, but become real. That the county and municipalities take the steps necessary to respond to this crisis. In our congregations, we can continue building beloved community by widening the circle of concern and by widening our conversations. This country's democratic experiment and this religious tradition, like our own lives, are works in progress, always growing, evolving, and knowing who we are, the full story of our past, helps us know what kind of changes are possible and are needed. Let us hold before us the vision of where we want to be, not where we are. In that earlier reading, Reverend Leslie Takahashi Morris says, let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our ears to the complexity of our world. Let us make our lives sanctuaries and nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over static, stubborn rocks in the course, that the margins hold the center. Let us continue as we widen the circle to hold the center. Amen, and so may it be. Let us be in silence together.
Let's sing together hymn number 348, Guide My Feet.
We extinguish our chalices with these words adapted from those of Audre Lorde. And I dream of our coming together encircled, driven, not only by love, but by lust for a working tomorrow. The flights of this journey, mapless, uncertain, and necessary as water.
Let's sing together our unison benediction. How bountiful the blessings that
has come to fall, and though that spirit rises on our wings, abiding in our arms of bonds above.
We lost our audio online.
Reverend Mary just muted.